The Honourable Kyle McGinn.
Thank you, President. That was very humbling, and I want to thank the Honourable Rosie Sahana for what was a very powerful, very powerful speech in this chamber this morning. And I want to thank the Honourable Rosie Sahana for her lifetime of advocacy and her continued passion in the First Nations space, not just in Western Australia but in Australia-wide. And I want to thank you for your courage for standing up and delivering such a raw and honest view on what is and has been a very heavy couple of months on the referendum debate in the public eye. I also want to thank Senator Pat Dodson, and I want to pay homage to the work that he has done over many years to bring First Nations people's voices to the table. And I also want to acknowledge that the Senator has been quite ill over the last couple of months, hence he has not been out doing what he has always done, advocating from the front. But even in his state of having an illness, has come out, as the Honourable Rosie Sahana said, and delivered a powerful message to the people of Australia that I think needs to be listened to, as the Honourable Rosie Sahana said, because it will be forever in our history, the result that happens on Saturday. I want to start my contribution by a little bit of a history lesson. 1973, Gough Whitlam established the National Aboriginal Consultative Committee. He established that, not through the Constitution, he established that as the government of the day. Malcolm Fraser come into power and got rid of it. That was replaced by the National Aboriginal Conference. Bob Hawke then come into power and he got rid of that. Bob Hawke set up the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Commission. John Howard got into power and abolished that. In 2011, the National Congress of Australia's First People met for the first time. That was under a Labor government. Then, when the new Liberal government came in, they defunded it and got rid of it. Members, to me it is as simple as that. We have seen over our history the creation and the destruction of an Aboriginal voice created by different governments. I'm not choosing sides here. Labor, Liberal, they've all done it. Why now, when we have the opportunity to establish and enshrine a body that cannot be played as a political football, do we find ourselves having such a disgusting debate in the public eye? It really irks me because, as I said, it is as simple as listening to advocates that have fought for over 100 years to get a voice. This isn't new. This isn't just something that has come up. You can see from what I just went through that we've gone a little bit of the way and then gone backwards. We've gone a little bit of the way and then gone backwards. And that's happened in a cycle of history that should really be a shame on our governments. And we now have the opportunity, because we've been invited. We have been invited by First Nations people not to set an agenda for them, not to make decisions for them, but to stand with them and create something that has the ability to stand on its own and provide a voice for our First Nations people not affected by the political environment. Something that will be able to grow and forever get better and stronger and provide to this country a voice that has been missing. You know, the Honourable Rosie Sahana talks about education in school and what we're taught. you know, I still to this day am disappointed that I was offered French class and Japanese class at high school, but I was never given the opportunity to learn the First Nations language of where my high school was. It wasn't even a question. What is the use of French when I don't understand the history of my own country and the culture, the rich, over 65,000 years of culture that could have been taught to me as a child? I'm now trying to find out for myself as a 35-year-old. And I think it's a blight that we haven't had that in our education system to ensure that now when we're having this debate, people actually understand why we're having it. I want to also pay homage and respect to a man that I worked with for many years and have the utmost respect for, Thomas Mayo. Thomas has been subject to what I think has been some of the most disgusting public attack I have seen since the marriage equality debate. The cartoons, the jabs, the threats of physical violence, the atrocious lies of his intent in the campaign. I am absolutely disgusted that a First Nations man who worked on the waterfront, worked his way up fighting for First Nations people across this country and put his own time into advocating for the voice and busting his ass absolutely around this country to send the message of what the voice is. And he is subject to people like Anthony Mundine offering him into a boxing ring so that he can punch him. That is terrible, terrible side of the campaign. The misinformation that has been put out and that I've seen firsthand on the polling booths, pre-poll for the last week and a half, is nothing short of disgraceful. To see the lies that are being peddled. I would urge anybody to rewatch the 10 minutes that the 15 minutes that we just heard from the Honourable Rosie Sahana, and you tell me how you justify voting no on Saturday. Because that was one of the most raw and upfront speeches I've ever seen. One of the things that has always irked me about this debate is how we got here in the last 6 years. Just remember, members, it was a Liberal government that requested from First Nations people what they want. And the First Nations people did not sit on their hands or pick something out of thin air. They advocated around the country across cultures to meet at Uluru and to come to a decision in 3 to 4 days on what it is they wanted to achieve. You put over 250 of the current politicians in a room and I dare you to get an agreement on such a powerful message that the Uluru Statement came out with. Because I can guarantee we wouldn't even be able to do it in this room. And I think that it is an absolute blight on our history that after the First Nations people achieved that and asked for a voice, treaty and truth, Makarrata, and simple requests for this country, the Prime Minister rejected it. Not only did the Prime Minister reject it, there was nothing else after it. There was no working with First Nations people on an alternative. There was nothing but silence. How insulting, after being asked to go back and come back to the government with what it is First Nations people wanted. They did that and they were met with silence. We now have a chance to turn that volume up and show Aboriginal people that we listened to the Uluru Statement. We listened to the fact that you went around and consulted with cross cultures in the First Nations culture, where we all know there's so many, and came up with a statement you wanted our country to agree on. And I, for one, am going to put my heart and my soul on Saturday, as the Rosie Sahana has asked, and I will be writing yes, and I will proudly remember that I voted yes, regardless of the result. Again, I want to thank the Honourable Rosie Sahana. Your advocacy, your work in the space of First Nations people is admirable, and I'm so absolutely privileged to serve in this parliament with you. Thank you for bringing it to the chamber.